Good morning, Warrior community. Thank you for joining us for the Waubonsie Valley High School annual Veterans Day ceremony. Veterans Day is one of heartfelt reflection and gratitude. As Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "The soldier above all others prays for peace," reminding us of the deep scars carried by those who have served. In honoring our veterans, we recognize not only the sacrifices, but also the enduring legacy of valor and commitment that they have passed on to the generations that follow. We are the beneficiaries of their service, and it is our duty to remember, appreciate, and support them in return. Thank you for joining us.
The Pledge of Allegiance is a promise of loyalty to the United States and was published for the first time in 1892. Each morning we stand to recite the pledge not only to reaffirm our promise to the U.S., but also as a commitment to veterans and all they have fought to protect. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was penned by Sir Francis Scott Key and stands as a symbol of unbreakable spirit of our country and the sacrifices made by those who have defended the ideals it represents. Its soaring notes and stirring lyrics remind us of the valor, resilience, and unwavering dedication that have defined our veterans. It is a symbol of the enduring strength of our nation and the sacrifices of those who have preserved its freedoms. Let us stand together with pride and gratitude as we begin our Veterans Day ceremony with the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
This year, we give a highlight of service of often unbeknownst to us when we go to the movies, the grocery store, or even to the park. Regular, unassuming individuals we run into may be an active military or veteran who bravely served in the military. This year, we hear from 3 veterans who also happen to be fathers of WVHS seniors. On this year's panel are Mr. Paul Culberson, father of Brock Culberson, Mr. Jim Houlihan, father of Elijah and Hannah Houlihan, and Mr. Greg Peranto, father of Sophia and Lydia Peranto. We'll hear a little bit about their service and how they decided to serve their country, their roles, and their perspective of Veterans Day.
Welcome to our panel here for Waubonsie Valley High School and our Veterans Day ceremony. Jason Schmidtgall and assistant principal here. I'll ask you guys to introduce yourselves shortly and also then provide us with a quick synopsis of your service, and then we'll jump into some more questions about how you came to serve your country or how you did serve your country. All right, so my first question, we'll start down here with Paul. If you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about your service.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Paul Culberson, Brock Culberson's father, senior here at Waubonsie Valley. I did 4 years within the National Guard, both in New Mexico and Louisiana, Army National Guard. And then once I graduated university at LSU, I transitioned to active duty, commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Engineer Corps, and spent 25 years active duty within the Army. 80% of that was in operational units, so divisional units like 101st, 25th Infantry Division, 1st Armored Division and below. And then my last 4 years on active duty, I served with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers here in Chicago and Fort Worth.
All right. So did your career take you to different locations then, I would assume? Yeah.
My first duty assignment was in Baumholder, Germany. We were just chatting about that earlier. Baumholder, Germany. From there, I went to the engineer career course at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I followed that up with 3 years in the 101st Airborne Division in Fort Campbell. Then we moved overseas, had a tremendous opportunity to go serve with foreign nation with the Australian Army. That's where Brock was born, actually, was in Australia. Came back to the States, served in Alaska with our 4th Brigade, 25th ID Airborne Brigade up there. And then did a number of assignments in the lower 48 with going to school at the Naval War College in Rhode Island. Did some service at our Joint Readiness Training Center down at Fort Polk, Louisiana. I think it's Fort Johnson now. They just renamed it a couple years ago. And then following that, it sent me to Chicago, where I served as the district commander for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Chicago District.
Oh, that's great. And you just retired, right?
I just retired last year. As of November 1st, I'll be 1 year out.
That's great. All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, Mr. Pronto, would you want to tell us a little bit about your path and how you joined the military?
It's very similar, but I'm Greg Perano, 2 daughters here. Sophia Perano's a senior, Lydia Perano's a freshman. And I went straight into the military academy at West Point right after graduating high school when I was 18. And that was, we can get into more why that decision was made and all. It was a great experience. It opened up the world after I got done. I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the engineer corps as well, and similar but condensed career version of what you just said. So I started out in Germany and was Schweinfurt, Germany for 3 years, which included a Kosovo deployment. Then I went to Fort Lewis, where I worked at I-Corps for a year and traveled a lot through Southeast Asia, which was a great experience. And then did my company command in Afghanistan with the Triple Nickel. And after that, I went to the Corps of Engineers. So I went to DC and worked for the Corps of Engineer headquarters, and I got out of the military in 2007.
2007, okay. So how many years total were you in?
So 4 years at the academy and 8 after. Yeah.
Okay. And when you say triple nickel, tell us, for those people who don't know what that means. Tell us.
So the triple, every unit has its nomenclature. So the 555 Engineer Brigade is out of Fort Lewis. And underneath that, you got a couple of battalions. The 864th Engineer Battalion is a construction unit, which I was more on the combat side as a lieutenant and as a young captain. But in Afghanistan, we were responsible for building the biggest infrastructure projects. It was a road through southern Afghanistan, and I was in charge of security for that project.
So when you were at West Point, what was your degree technically in?
So my degree was engineering management and environmental engineering.
Okay. Because at West Point, you have a degree program, and then you're also then military, right?
So it's interesting, at West Point, everybody has to graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree. So everybody has an engineering degree, whether that's their major or their minor, but you have to have that engineering background. So, yeah, and the reason for that is not to teach you how to be an engineer, but it's really to teach you how to problem solve, how to break problems down to the root and come up with solutions. And so it's really the way of thinking is what the military is going for there. Yeah.
And Mr. Houlihan, go ahead, jump into where you were with your military career and how you came to serve.
Sure. Jim Houlihan. I have a senior, Elijah, and a junior, Hannah. It's crazy that they're this old already. So I did 5 years in the Marine Corps as an enlisted. Got out as a corporal right at the tail end of that. Was an MP for those 5 years. Worked in a brig of all places. Joined to be a street military police officer, 5811. Wound up being a 5831 because we were stuck in training for forever if we didn't do it. 3.5 years at Lejeune, Camp Lejeune, and a year in Okinawa, Japan. My training was a little different, so I went to boot camp in San Diego. Actually came home for a week and then went to combat training in North Carolina, which was the first time I think in 20 years, probably since the Vietnam era, that they had started combat training again for Marines, which I found ironic because you spend a whole month essentially combat training during boot camp, but this was more combat focused on really how to execute from a combat perspective. and then went home again for a week, and then went to my training actually at Lackland Air Force Base. So kind of bounced around the U.S., and then, like I said, my last stint was a year in Okinawa, Japan. I don't have all that fancy educational stuff, engineering. Like, Marines are tip of the spear. We're told to just go do what we need to do and eat 10-year-old MREs and all that fun stuff. But, you know, from that perspective, you know, it was a great 5 years. God bless the guys who stayed in longer. I was ready to move on with my civilian life at that point in time.
Yeah. And tell me, or tell us, so the skills that you learned in the military, did those translate over into your life afterward?
Yeah, I mean, so you know, we talked earlier on the podcast. So I think a big piece of what I was trying to do was I wanted to be in law enforcement. So obviously I got that training, that education. I don't care if you're an officer or enlisted. I think the biggest thing the military will give you is discipline. Whether you had it growing up because of how you were parented. It allows you to take that to what I'd say is another level. Right. And I would bet $1 million if I interacted with their kids, they're very similar to my kids, which there's a lot of structure and understanding about how to be a leader, not a follower, all those things. So I think it also helps from a parenting perspective. It helped me in my just career overall, because I did get out, go into law enforcement, and then that just literally stroke of luck, met an ex-law enforcement person who was involved in financial fraud investigations, and I've been doing that for almost 30 years now.
Yeah, that's great. So some obvious apparent skills there that translated into your normal community life.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the one, again, like I said, I think the one thing we talk about it from a job perspective. I think from a parenting perspective, it's allowed us to kind of distill some of that down and also be somewhat more structured in life.
Greg, what about you? Are there any outstanding skills aside from the discipline and the drive that you learned in the military that you know you translated well into your post-military career or post-military life?
Absolutely. I would say just the basic leadership skills, building teams. In every civilian role I've had, which I've been in the healthcare industry ever since, but you're always, you have to tackle a problem. What's the challenge? Either we need to sell more products, we need to introduce something, we need to go improve patient care in some way with a certain product. In order to do that, you have to build a team, motivate people to move in the same direction, and drive to success. And just that thought process of how to get people on board and moving in the same direction, that's what you're doing in the military, is you're building the team and you're accomplishing a mission. So.
Paul, what were some of your outstanding responsibilities that you really enjoyed during your long career with the military? Like part of your career where you look back fondly and you're like, that was probably one of my best stations or one of my best responsibilities.
I mean, I think one of the proudest things I could say is I went on 7 deployments, 1 peacekeeping to Kosovo as well, 4 to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan, and we brought every single member of our team home safely to their family. Some carry some baggage after the fact, but every one of them came back alive to their family. To kind of caveat with what these 2 gentlemen were saying, one of the things I tell people is, and the military teaches this: show up on time, right uniform, right attitude, take care of your people, and that's one of the things that the military, all branches, teaches you, is just take care of the people that work for you, and they'll take care of you.
That's why he's dressed better than us today.
Exactly.
Good life skills, right?
That's what. But I showed up late. Oh, you didn't know? You were good with us.
I'll correct that. You were actually about 12 minutes early, so that was perfectly great. Okay, so in general, why do you feel service to our country is important, and what can we tell kids that might be considering serving our country?
Go ahead. You go. Sure. Yeah, we'll bounce it around. Yeah.
I think we were talking hockey earlier, right? And you were saying that you didn't play when you were a kid, you couldn't afford it. I grew up in Minnesota. Everybody asked me. It's like the first question: did you play hockey? And it's the same answer. No, I couldn't afford it as a kid. Yeah. Both my older sisters didn't go to college right out of school, and so I knew I needed to figure out how I was going to pay for my education. Yeah. And so I looked into ROTC. And then I found out about the academy and went into the military, and it opened up the world for me. And to answer your question, those opportunities were provided to me because I live in America, which is a great country, and people have served for centuries before us, creating those opportunities for us. And I think one of our biggest responsibilities as adults now in this country is to ensure that our kids have the same opportunities, and military service enables us to do that. So I was very honored, proud to serve, and look forward to instilling that in future generations.
Yeah, I think it's, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think Greg's response is pretty interesting. And I think a lot of things changed with 9/11 for people who were like pride of country, whatever. Kind of got people instilled or inspired them to join and serve their country, to protect the country. When I joined, it was, God, I hated school. And I knew I wanted to be in law enforcement. And there was a recruiting agency right down the block, and it was like hook and mouth, right? Hey, this is going to be easier. Lord knows it wasn't. But sometimes it's luck and fate. And I think we talked about hard work. So for me, that was the path to go do what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in law enforcement. It was in my blood, like we talked about earlier. My grandfather, I've got a cousin. I knew I wanted to be the good guy at the end of the day. And that got me down that path. And then it's really interesting. You said something earlier that I didn't even think about, like the leadership piece of this. I think because it's become so second nature from our training that you don't think about, wow, it's somewhat easier to lead because we have that training. Whether it's starting my own company, right, being the president of the hockey club, you don't do everything right, but you have more of that structure of how to kind of direct that ship. And there's that, you can read a million books on business and whatnot, and it's not about having people on the bus, it's about having them on the right seat on the bus and bringing people to you that are complementary. And you learn a lot of humility in the military. Like really fast, you learn you're not the best, the greatest at anything. Whether you're in boot camp, going through an obstacle course, or training, or whatever you're doing, there's always somebody bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter, whatever term you want to find, and you have to realize that humility, and it's good to instill that internally in from a leadership perspective. As far as serving my country, I never thought of it that way, right? I thought of it as, this is my opportunity to go learn and do something, and I still to this day, when somebody says, hey, thanks for serving, I'm like, it's like, yeah, okay, sure. I love and I love and appreciate it, but I don't look at it like I did anything that special at the end of the day. It's weird to say that. It's like, yeah, thanks, great. I think I'm more honoring the people who, like, I didn't go overseas during the first Gulf War we talked about. I stayed and worked at the brig because we had people who didn't want to go. Somebody had to guard the people who didn't want to go actually fight. The people who went overseas, the people who seen things like we talked about your grandfather, et cetera, like those are the people we should be thanking, because they went and fought to give our kids the ability to do what they do, and us to do what we do today.
Yep.
I would just, I would say there's no greater honor than giving back and serving your country in any capacity, whether that's in the military or law enforcement, firefighter, just giving back to something bigger than yourself. I knew from an early age that I was going to join the service. My father was in the Air Force for 22 years, and I didn't know what branch of service. The Army just gave more opportunities to me when I was coming out of high school, so that's the path I took. I've tried to instill that discipline and integrity in my own children. I've got, my oldest son is attending school in Boulder right now, and he's doing ROTC, so he plans to join the Army as well after graduating. So it's one of those things where, right now less than 1% of the nation serves in uniform in the service. And if you think about it, back in World War II, it was roughly 12%. We had 100 million people in the United States, 12 million people served in uniform, so every family had skin in the game. It's not that way any longer. But yeah, I would just say there's no greater honor than to give something back to the greatest country in the world.
Thank you. And tell us, why do you, as veterans, why do you feel it's important that as a school and as a community, we recognize Veterans Day here in the U.S.?
I think it's important to honor the veterans that are, not only the veterans, but their families as well, because they're sacrificing too, right? So if a soldier or an airman or a Marine goes overseas, the family's definitely sacrificing as well, not having that family member at home. But yeah.
I double down on that. It's about those who are currently serving. Tremendous amount of respect for Paul for making it a career. It's a major decision when you get out, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of classmates that are still in, stay in touch with them. A lot of respect for the folks that decide to go the whole distance, right, and make it a career. One of the most, I don't want to say concerning, or just something that stuck with me when I got back from Afghanistan in 2006 was I had a lot of people asking me, oh, we're still in Afghanistan? Right? They had no clue, right? Because Iraq was in the media at that point in time, and we actually lost more soldiers in Afghanistan than we did in Iraq in that year as a percentage of people deployed. But so much of the American population, they appreciate the military. It doesn't impact their life, and they don't have skin in the game with that less than 1%. And honoring Veterans Day just hopefully brings some recognition to those folks who are putting their lives on the line. And I couldn't agree more with the families. It's a family sacrifice.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing with our students and helping us to reinforce the idea of Veterans Day and service above self and service to our country.
One evening while at summer camp, I overblew into my bugle's mouthpiece. I was the substitute bugler playing taps, which signaled lights out to the campers. Just before the high G, I squeezed my eyelids shut and thought, would I make the note?
Those whose loved ones died while serving in the U.S. military know the sound of that high G all too well. They probably remember every one of the song's 24 notes because it's the somber bugle call played at all military funerals. However, taps didn't start as a military burial tradition.
General Butterfield may not have envisioned that the bedtime melody he hummed to his aide along the James River in Virginia on that steamy summer night in 1862 would be associated with the tragedy of death.
However, the words that accompany taps marry sleep with death in a beautiful metaphor that must offer some comfort to the grief-stricken families of fallen heroes.
Day is done, gone the sun, from the hills, from the lake, from the skies. All is well, safely rest. God is nigh.
Go to sleep, peaceful sleep. May the soldier or sailor God keep. On the land or the deep, safe in sleep.
Love, good night, must thou go, when the day and the night need thee so? All is well, speedeth all to their rest.
Fades the light, and afar goeth day, and the stars shineth bright. Fare thee well, day is gone, night is on.
Thanks and praise for our days, neath the sun, neath the stars, neath the sky. As we go, this we know, God is nigh.
That night, I finally made the high G note. As I finished the tune, I felt like crying. At age 15, I didn't know that taps accompanied the burial of countless fallen American military heroes. The notes convey a sense of something simple, yet complex, something seizing, yet eternal, something comforting, yet sorrowful. The tragic yet peaceful call of lights out.
you for joining us for our annual Veterans Day ceremony. We challenge you with this, Warriors. Anytime that you're out in public or around, please be aware of any opportunity you can to thank a veteran.